The house was steeped in the quietude of the night, each room undisturbed and exuding the warmth and peace of home. As a young nanny, I felt a hint of pride that the children's slumber came smoothly, nestled by my soft consolations and bedtime stories. Now the faint noises from the upper floor had also subsided, giving way to the silence and tranquility of the deep night. In this calm, I sat alone on the comfy sofa, the remote in my hand gently bringing the TV screen to life. Instantly, the room was filled with light and the sound of the television program, the blurry scenes and characters twinkling like stars scattered from afar. An old movie played on the TV, the picture grainy but vivid in color. Its dialogues and music seemed especially sharp this deep into the night. The walls around were adorned with several landscape paintings and family photos, the smiling faces within seeming to tell me of the love and joy that both once filled and still inhabit this home. On the neatly arranged bookshelf, rows of book spines told stories of a solitude brimming with knowledge. Heavy curtains hung in front of the large window, nearly blocking all sounds from the dark night sky outside, crafting a sealed and warm little world for me. Every so often, a breeze would skim past the window, carrying with it the coolness of the night and a hint of the distant ocean's scent. I was aware of the vast and mysterious world outside, but this tranquil home instilled a sense of security in me, making me feel cut off from the rest of the world. I tried to relax, to ignore the loneliness, immersing myself in the fictional entertainment before the television. The TV program's content gradually made my mind wander, but my thoughts drifted to that world hidden beneath the veil of the night, the world I glimpsed occasionally through the small living room window. With the accompaniment of the TV's sound and light, I attempted to focus my attention on the story displayed on the screen, distancing myself from those formless fears lurking in the dark, or perhaps only within my imagination. The home remained as it always was. Everything looks the same as usual, but something was subtly shifting beneath the surface of tranquility. The program on television was one I was not particularly interested in, yet it provided a mundane comfort, a cozy backdrop of noise. I looked around, feeling the warmth and safety of this home. The family photos on the walls, the soft sofa, the faint lighting, everything felt so familiar and reassuring. I sat quietly under the light, holding the old phone in my hand, its black casing gleaming with a profound sheen under the lamplight. The ring of the telephone was short and sharp, like a sharp dagger cleaving through the serenity of the night. I eyed the glistening phone number with confusion. No recognizable information, just a string of digits. Reluctantly, I put down the TV show I was watching and picked up, "Hello." The voice at the other end was deep and muffled, as if passing through layer upon layer of heavy drapes. It asked, "Check on the children." What? I stood, frozen, somewhat unable to comprehend. "Check on the children," the voice repeated, its tone emerging as though from the depths of distant darkness. I glanced down the staircase. Darkness and silence. I told myself this must be some young prankster's mischief, hung up with irritation, trying to shake off the unusual feeling in my heart. However, the phone rang again soon after. I furrowed my brows, hesitated, but answered. "Check on the children." The voice emerged once more, but this time with a tone more urgent, colder. I gripped the phone tighter, a twinge of unease beginning to build. "Who are you? What do you want?" I said, trying to steady my voice as calm as possible. Yet, the response was the chilling tone again from the other end of the phone. "Check on the children." The tone was drawn out, more threatening. I hung up with a heavy sigh. The phone lay silent again, but my heart felt as if it was in a vice. An ominous foreboding filled my chest. My gaze returned to the TV, but I could no longer focus, the phrase "check on the children" echoing in my ears. I fought to calm myself, insisting it was just a prank, not worthy of concern. But the fear and tension inside me clung like a magnet, inescapable. Then the phone rang once again. I was breathless now, drowning in a sea of icy fear. I picked up with trembling hands and the chilling voice came once more. "Check on the children." I was stunned, taking a deep breath before slamming the phone down fiercely. I crouched beside it, resting my forehead in my hand, unable to dispel the panic within. I couldn't shake off this unknown voice. It was like a dark shadow looming over me, leaving me no escape. When the phone rang for the fourth time, I was on edge. My fingers were ice cold, trembling as I picked up the receiver, knowing I couldn't pretend nothing was happening any longer. The expected silence filled my ears, followed by that brief, cold command, "Check on the children." Though my instincts screamed it was a sick prank, I couldn't dismiss it. I put down the phone, my heart pounding as I walked towards the stairs. I went upstairs, pushing open the children's doors, checking on them one by one. They were all immersed in peaceful slumber, their innocent faces eerily calm under the moonlight. I gently touched each of their heads, reassuring myself they were unharmed, then silently made my way downstairs, the weight of responsibility as a nanny and adult pressing down on me. I felt my heart beating, echoing in my chest. Anxiously, I dialed 911, waiting for the operator's voice. "Hello? I need help. Someone keeps calling me." I tried to keep my voice steady, but it shook regardless. The operator's calm appeased part of my fear, but deep inside, a creeping unease still lurked like a venomous snake. A police officer was dispatched to assist with tracing the call. Such incidents might be routine every night somewhere, but for me, this home, this night, these calls represented an unprecedented threat. I couldn't just sit and wait for the phone to ring again. I started checking all the doors and windows, making sure they were locked. I prepared for all possible defenses I could think of. As I moved back to my secure corner through the living room, the sounds from the television felt distant and void, the noise of another world while I was trapped in this slowly suffocating fear. The phone rang once more. My breath quickened, my hand involuntarily clenched into a fist, nearly ready to flee this dreadful house. But I stopped myself, reminding myself I needed to endure, to be strong. I picked up the receiver again. It looked alien and terrifying in my nearly pallid hands. This time I didn't speak, only listened. The voice indeed lacked its previous threatening tone, now seeming to taunt me. "Did you check?" I felt not just mockery but disdain. I couldn't bear it any longer. I yelled, "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" "I've already called the police." But there was no reply, just the sound of the call disconnecting. At that moment, a resolve unlike any I'd felt before surged within me. I knew, no matter what, I had to protect this home, these helpless children, despite my own overwhelming fear. Drawing strength from this sense of duty, I silently prayed for the police to arrive soon. As I collapsed on the sofa attempting to steady my breathing, the ringing of the phone turned into a piercing hallucination in my ears. The air around seemed to freeze with my tension, every little noise echoing like a deafening boom. I closed my eyes, longing for an update from the police, telling myself they'd handle everything. Time blurred in this intense state of mind. Every second stretched out, becoming an ordeal. Now and then, I glanced toward the dark windows, imagining malicious shadows lurking just beyond the glass, waiting to pounce on this warm home. I second-guessed every decision, each lift and replacement of the receiver, every action to ensure the children's safety, questioning if it was enough, if it was right. The phone didn't ring again, but my heart continued to pound, syncing with the ticking of the clock on the sofa. The police said they would trace the call's origin, but the surface silence didn't ease my vigilance. Every few minutes, I'd get up to check the windows and door locks again. Such actions brought a false sense of security, but at least they gave me something to do besides fretting. Suddenly, the phone rang again, shocking me back to alertness. It was like an alarm clock in the night, mercilessly breaking the dubious tranquility. I crossed the room to pick up the handset, which felt as heavy as lead. My fingers twirled around the cord, providing a semblance of reality. When I finally mustered the courage to answer, what came through wasn't that cold voice but decisive information from the police station. "We've traced the source of the call." The officer spoke with a swift yet steady tone. "Please remain calm and safe. We are about to—" His words were cut off, followed by an increasingly persistent beeping sound. Clutching the dead phone, a fresh wave of panic surged within me. Where was that call coming from? What did that mysterious caller plan to do before the police found them? I realized that even though the police now knew the source of the calls, the ending to this prank was still unknown. Pacing between the room where the children slept and my own, I felt almost crushed by the weight of mounting pressure. Everything around me seemed unreal. My heart felt at times as if it were being blown over by cold wind, at others as if running under the intense sun. The low mumble of curses and the pleadings of a winter night interwove within my heart, turning the beautiful setting of home into an unsafe trap. With each endless minute of waiting, I fought hard not to imagine the worst. But I could not completely erase that persistent question in my heart. Was the caller of that phone really just a breath away? That question hung like a heavy stone over my heart. How I wished it was a harmless prank, a cruel but not harmful joke. But reality is often crueler than fiction, filled with an inexplicable chill. I was prepped to face whatever came, shaking on the inside, but my will to fight had never subsided. Not for me, but for this home, for the children's safety. This lonely battle was my trial as a nanny, and I vowed to stand brave until this terrible night was finally over. When the phone rang, my heart almost leaped out of my chest. I took a deep breath, steadying my wrist, trying to make my movements look less frantic. Hearing the voice of the officer, my blood felt like it was freezing. "Listen," the officer began urgently. "You need to leave the house immediately. The origin of the calls is located inside your position." The officer's voice was tense and rapid. A shiver climbed up my spine, and I found myself almost unable to speak. "You mean, the caller is inside the house? But the children." My voice trembled, stuttering under pressure. The officer quickly interrupted me. "Colleagues are on their way, but you need to move now. Don't go upstairs. Leave the house through the nearest exit." I hung up the phone amidst chaos, but I knew I had to remain calm. Glancing toward the staircase, thinking of the children sleeping upstairs, I deeply struggled. Yet, I realized the only way to protect them was to take action immediately. I grabbed the keys beside me, moving swiftly but cautiously, fearing any noise could provoke the mysterious threat to turn real. Turning back, every shadow in the home seemed to be filled with a sinister air, and every step felt like navigating a minefield. I opened the front door silently and stepped over the threshold. The wind under the night sky, with hints of seaweed and salt, brought a slight clarity. I didn't look back. Hurrying along the dim street, I glanced back periodically to ensure no one was following. Each street light seemed unusually bright, the houses and trees on both sides passing quickly in my field of vision. I tried to steady my breath, trying to shake off the growing panic. Soon, I reached a more open area, turned back to see. The house I had just left stood like a castle in the night, filled with ominous darkness and silent threat. That house, once full of laughter and joy, was now the center of my fears. Despite endless questions, knowing I had made the right decisions, I held on to an internal resolve, awaiting the police's arrival and the end of this nightmare. I hugged myself tightly, eyes fixed unwaveringly on that home until the distant lights of police cars and the sound of sirens gradually approached, bringing a sorely needed semblance of peace to this frantic night. When the officer revealed that the heart-pounding calls had, in fact, come from inside the house itself, it felt like my world was crumbling. The news battered against my heart like cold waves, every word stabbing into my chest like icicles. At that moment, my blood seemed to freeze. Time stopped for an instant, leaving nothing but a continuous tide of fear and shock. My mind was flooded with a million whys, but in that instance, I was unable to form any meaningful thoughts. Fear, tangible as a shadow, wrapped tightly around me, and all those ordinary household corners and corridors through the night's shadows seemed to hide malicious spirits. As I re-entered the home with the police, my heart was heavy with foreboding. The echo of footsteps and silent cries reverberated through the empty house amidst the long wait and tense atmosphere. As we prepared to go upstairs to check the children's rooms, my palms were sweating. The weighty steps that accompanied me to the children's rooms prelude the most terrible of realities. The children were gone. At that moment, my heart was gripped tightly. A pain indescribable surged from my depths. My legs weakened, barely able to support me. I slumped to the floor. A strange silence filled the room, yet inside me raged a storm of despair, sorrow, and guilt, drowning me. The children's lives had left at some unknown time. My duty, my promise, seemed to have dissipated into nothingness. Tears blurred my vision involuntarily, but the piercing pain was clear as never before. Each breath felt like it was on needles, and my heart seemed forever unable to heal. The police tried to comfort me, but their voices sounded as if they came from another world far away. My consciousness was deeply immersed in this boundless darkness and despair. Everything happened so fast, so suddenly, it caught one off guard. Me, a nanny entrusted and expected to protect this home, now bore an indescribable failure and remorse. Under the night sky, the house stood silently, its once laughter and joy now replaced by despair and silence. I stood up, eyes returning to that silent home, inwardly questioning why malice and tragedy had so suddenly befallen this innocent family. But on this cold night, aside from the silence, it seemed the answers would never be found.